Hello and welcome to the VarsityWA Week 9 Midweek Podcast. I'm Todd Milles, your host. We have a great show planned. Special guest this week coming from Spokane. Gonzaga Prep's Nate Graham and Cheney's John Graham, they're brothers, and the sons of legendary Reardon coach Dan Graham will join us. And then we bring back the championship coach, Eric Kurle, back after a 1-week hiatus. He will have his Coach's Corner X's and O's breakdown of the 4A SBSL championship game between Graham Kapphausen and Puyallup, and Cheney and Mount Spokane in the GSL. And finally, we'll welcome back Matt Evans from Evans Rankings to talk about a few of the Week 9 games of the week, including those two games, as well as the 3A PSL showdown between Lakes and Mount Sahoma. Stick around. Welcome to the first segment of the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I am joined by two very special guests, two very successful coaches whose teams are having fantastic years in the Greater Spokane League. Nate Graham at Gonzaga Prep, who's ranked number 1 and has been all year in our 4A rankings. And John Graham at Cheney, both in year 2. Older brother John Graham, who's coached a lot in the college game, but has come to the high school game. Both of these guys in year 2 in the GSL. Guys, thanks for joining us. Let's start by just your background, who your dad is, and being in Reardon, the small town in Reardon. Your dad was a very successful coach. I think John said he got to play for his dad as an assistant coach, and Nate got to play for him when he was the head coach for 11 years. Just some of the characteristics, maybe some of the behind-the-scenes things about your dad and what kind of made him successful. I'd like to ask both of you just kind of what sticks with the both of you about your dad and his coaching style.
I mean, Dad was a pretty tough guy. Everybody saw the exterior, high expectations. Probably the biggest thing people didn't see about Dad, and I think all the players would say the same thing, is how much he loved all the kids. And I mean, like I said, he was an old school coach and he held us all accountable. But at the end of the day, I think every one of his kids that has ever played for him truly knew that they were loved and would run them through a brick wall for him. And that was probably the biggest part of his success, is kids played hard. And like I said, Dad brought out the best in almost every kid that he ever coached.
Yeah. So that's this is saying you can coach two ways. You can coach with love or coach with fear. And Dad was hard, but you wanted, and whether it was Dad or Coach Smith, you just wanted to do well for those two guys. You didn't want to disappoint them because of like Nate said, they held you accountable, but it was a family. And growing up in Reardon, I was telling Todd, we lived a block apart from Coach Smith, and it was a family. And a lot of tradition, and it just, you grew up and that's what you did. You played football, basketball, and 3 sports and everything. So it was pretty special.
Yeah, not a lot of communities get to boast, back-to-back Hall of Fame coaches. Gene Smith, you get to play for him, John, when he was the head coach, and then followed by your dad. Can you kind of give me the community perspective on the presence that those two guys have in the town of Reardon?
Yeah, I mean, they're both legends in the town of Reardon. I won multiple state titles. I don't know how many state titles between them. Football, basketball, track. Dad had multiple state titles in track as the head coach, and Coach Smith won basketball titles and football titles, and Dad won football titles. So it's what they did. And they coached 3 sports, and they were the athletic director, and they painted the field, and they did everything. And so it was a standard that they had that, you did everything right. You did the right things in the hallways at school. You did the right thing, when you're out in the community, and it just all carried over to the football field, to the basketball court, and everything we did. You just did it the right way, and you did it with class, and you did it with pride, and you did it with a lot of hard work.
Yeah, your dad was 11 years as a head coach in football at Reardon, won back-to-back state championships, and then retired after the second one, 99 wins. You didn't get that 100th win. I don't know if he ever talks about, getting that 100th win, but what's your dad doing these days?
Watching grandkids and great grandkids. I mean, he comes to Nate's games all the time. He's been a few of my games. He's got, Nate's kids are playing sports. My kids are all out of high school and college, but he just follows grandkids and kids around, and he loves to fly fish. That's kind of his main passion now, is tying flies and fly fishing. But for 80, he's still a very, very active person.
Nate, obviously you and your brother have taken very different paths in coaching. John largely in the college game, but you guys got to sort of reconnect as head coaches, becoming head coaches at the same time. But it sounds like there was an opportunity there for you guys to kind of join forces. Can you tell that story a little bit before John took the job at Cheney?
Well, I was always on John. I kind of knew that David's was getting close, about retiring resigning from Gonzaga Prep, retiring from coaching football. And as soon as he got done at Eastern, he's coaching some junior high football, or he was in the business world for a while. And then I was always begging John. It's like, man, I get the head job. Come coach for us. Come coach with us. Coach with us. Coach with us. And just because of the respect I have for him. You talk about influences on your life, and for me to be fortunate enough to have, my dad, who was obviously a very successful coach, and then John, who also a very successful coach, just two of the closest people in my life to me. Yeah, just out of pure respect, it was always, I don't know if he was that close, but I was always in my brain. It's like, I'm going to keep begging him, and hopefully someday, and even to this day, even hopefully someday there might be an opportunity where we do get to coach together.
You both have clinched playoff spots already, starting in week 10. But John's taking Cheney against Mount Spokane this week for the 3A GSL number 1 seed, that showdown. I don't know if a lot of people, John, had Cheney in that position in the summer, but here we are. That's why they play the game. I want to ask both of you this question, but I want to start with you, John. Just some of the things maybe that have sort of delineated from, your influence of your dad, but your own kind of sort of your own experiences in football. Just some of the common denominators of success in football. How would you describe that in terms of how you've been able to bring Cheney into a playoff team so quickly?
Well, it started day one. I told kids we're going to play hard. No matter what we do, we're going to play hard. We're going to block, and we're going to tackle. We're going to run to the football. And if we can do those things, then the X's and O's will take care of themselves. Our kids have bought into the weight room. What we're doing in the weight room this last year, and that was a commitment by the administration here. Our principal athletic director got a brand new weight room. We opened up more athletic conditioning classes for kids to get into. I mean, I was sending pictures, videos to what we were doing in the weight room this morning to Nate. We got 45 football players in 2 classes, and what we're doing there is college level stuff in the weight room. And it's allowed us to compete this year, and the kids have bought into that. But it comes down to playing hard. And I told them last year, that first year, no matter what, and we did, and we didn't have a bunch of success last year, but I think you could talk to every coach in the league. Our kids played hard, even when we were getting our tails kicked. We played 48 minutes, and we played relentlessly, and it's carried over this year. What they're doing. I had one of the old coaches in Spokane, Tom Yearout, who won a state title, Lewis and Clark. He emailed me a week or two ago, and he's like, he's the defensive coordinator back at Lewis and Clark now. And he goes, I'm showing my kids your guys' film of how hard you guys play and run to the football. And like I said, and whether you're a receiver, I told receivers, you're going to block. Yeah, I don't care how many catches you're going to be, you're going to block. And if you don't want to block, then you're not going to play. And so the kids have bought into that, and the kids were starving. I mean, you can use the word hungry, but these kids were starving for wins. They wanted success, and to their credit, they bought in, and they're doing it. We got a great senior class. We got, I think, 5, maybe 6 seniors playing both sides of the ball and play hard all the time. So it's been cool, and I'm just super proud of those kids. They've earned it. As we tell them, you don't get everything. You don't get anything in life. You don't deserve anything in life. And I've told them that at the beginning of the season. You don't deserve anything. Go out and earn it. And these kids have earned it. And that's cool.
Nate, you talked about taking over for a long time, Gonzaga Prep coach Dave McKenna last year, won a GSL championship, led this program to the state semifinals in 4A in your first year as a head coach. Year 2, you've continued that success, but how much more comfortable do you feel as a head coach in year 2?
I think every year brings different challenges. And as far as year 2, I don't know if I'll ever be comfortable, to be honest. I guess if you're comfortable, then it's, you're not working hard enough. There's always seems like there's stress. I stress when we play John, I stress. I don't know if I ever truly feel comfortable. I guess probably the biggest thing for me, obviously very different situations from John coming in, and I just like John and Dad and David's my next door neighbor and coached for him for 17 years, and he's still at school, and I feel like I'm trying to live up to expectations all the time, which is a good thing. Just like John said, nothing's given to you. I got to earn it, and yeah, we have some really, really talented kids, and doesn't mean that we just kind of go out and practice and throw out the ball and, it's like, yeah, X's and O's. And we all work really hard. I know how hard John works at it. I know how hard David worked at it, and living up to that expectation is something that I feel responsible to do. Just the history of Gonzaga Prep, what David built, or I shouldn't say built, but the tradition he continued. The kids deserve that. Every single kid that shows up out there every single day deserves me to not be comfortable, and to, just like we expect them to not be comfortable all the time, work our butt off, and what happens, but try to put them in the best situation possible, and not for a lack of working our butt off. So I don't know if it's, like I said, I don't know if I'll ever be comfortable in this position, to be honest.
Washington High School football, the Graham brothers will be in the postseason this year. I'd like to thank John and Nate Graham for joining the podcast. Best of luck here in week 9, especially you, John, as you go for the number 1 seed in the 3A GSL. And then in week 10 and moving forward, guys, I appreciate the time.
You bet.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd.
Welcome back to the second segment of the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. And I'm joined by, after a week off, the championship coach, Eric Kurle. I had a couple coaches, Eric, text me this week, "Where's Kurle? I love his breakdowns. Is he going to be back this week?" Well, he's back to break down a couple of the biggies in week 9, which is largely the last game of the regular season. And the first game is, I think, a game that you probably wanted to break down since week 1. It's Puyallup traveling to Graham Kapowsen for the 4A SBSL championship game. I was going to ask you, Eric, I said, it's your alma mater against the team that you led to a state championship. It's got to be a real tug of loyalty. I guess not, because you're wearing that orange T-shirt. I know who you're pulling for this week, but you've had a chance to look at these teams not only last week, but throughout the season, and the X's and O's matchups. What intrigues you, the 1 or 2 matchups of this game?
It's going to be a special, special game. I think these two teams, which I think are very good football teams, we might see them again, in a state title. They both have that ability. They match up really well. They're probably the only two teams that can match up with each other outside. Puyallup, maybe a little better on the offensive line, but that D line of GK, squatty, quick little kids, they're hard to block, just like the O'Day guys had a trouble with them inside. GK is going to have to stop the run. GK is going to have to stop the run. The Bailey kid at Puyallup is special, and he bounces and he finds that crease. And Puyallup's line does a great job of double teaming and getting up. So the D line for GK's got to play really well, and the back end's got to have to not blow coverages. Puyallup's got a great job, getting it to Looker and the Mitchell kid. They're special outside and getting them the ball in different ways and quick screens, middle, and they drive it down the field. The quarterback is elusive, moves around, finds he doesn't want to take off and run. He wants to just set up time and make the back end fall apart and then get the ball to the guys. And the same thing on offense for GK. I mean, GK's AJ's back. I think he can throw the ball down the field as well as anybody, but GK really wants to do is curl the quick screens off the run game. Blake Pearson is a physical running back, not quick like Bailey, but a physical run downhill. GK's old line's been up and down this year. GK's old line's got to come to the party today. They got to come to the party if they're going to stay in this game. Both these teams feel like if they momentum's going to take care of a lot of this. This is a big game for both of them. I think GK has been looking ahead of this a little bit throughout this last 4 weeks, not playing great competition every week. They've been looking ahead, getting ready for this thing. And I think Puyallup with the coach has got them fired up down there in Puyallup and got them playing well with great momentum. And I think you're going to see, two teams are going to clash right away. They're going to feel each other out, and then someone's going to give. But I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I really do think it's going to be a high scoring game in this one.
Let me read the names on the perimeter for both teams. Let's start with Puyallup. Jaden Woodland, Josiah Mitchell, Lawson Looker, son of Dane Looker. Fantastic receivers, fantastic trio of receivers. And then you look at GK, Case Betts, Jace Halaz, the newcomer, Quijano Corpus. You got Mo Williams now. When you look at what both teams have on the perimeter on both sides of the ball, Eric, is it a stalemate? Does one team have a little bit of an advantage over the other? What do you think about that?
Like I said earlier, I think those guys match up so well right there. I think blown coverages are going to be what's going to happen. Blown coverage and missed tackle, but I really think the run game is going to be the key to this thing. I really believe the run game is going to be the key to this thing, and I think both these coaches probably know that. I think they're both outside. Both these coaches probably know that both those teams are damn good outside. I mean, they got kids. They could probably both go cover one, man up, and let those guys battle it out. And there's going to be some jump balls and some wins one way or the other. But I think it's all going to come down to a guy who can run the ball and who can stop the run.
Yeah, you talked about the O'Day game where Graham Kapowski for 3 quarters clearly outplayed the defending Class 3A champs. Ran into a little trouble stopping the run in the fourth quarter. Didn't have all their guys in the rotation, so maybe got worn down a little bit. What's it going to take for that defensive line to? I don't think you're going to hold Brighton Bailey down to 20, 30 yards, but not let him really sort of dictate the game.
Well, like I said, I think the quickness of the D line, they're going to have to hit some gaps. They're going to have to movement. Puyallup's a lot. They'll go some quick huddle. They'll do some sideline calls off of what's going off. They'll look over, see what you're doing coverage wise. They're going to have to move a little bit on the D line. And their linebackers got to play pretty well this game. They're going to have to run fit well into this run game because they run that zone, and that kid's so well at bouncing it in or bouncing it out off the double team blocks that Puyallup's line is going to have to, get in some slants and get some games going with their linebackers and get into that thing and get to him in the backfield, because if you let him get in open space, he's special. He's really special. And both these teams, it's really funny, they're really young. Both these teams are really young, and they're going to be around for a while.
At the end of this one, Eric, what will the scoreboard say?
I love both places, man. I love them both. But I'm going GK. My boys there are going to coach them up and get it done. I have all the respect in the world for the GK staff and the guys there. Most of them were around when I was there. But I also say Puyallup, what they're doing right now is special, and I think they're building that program back to the glory days.
Yeah, you've mentioned, I think the single biggest matchup favors Puyallup, and that's the offensive line run game. against that front. I know that Graham Capaldi's smaller, quick, but nobody's been able to stop Puyallup on the ground. I think they're going to take advantage of that. I think Puyallup wins by a touchdown, but I agree. I think it's going to be pretty high scoring. Let's go 40-33 in some weird score.
Ooh, I like that. I think something weird like 37-35 GK.
Okay. The second game that the championship coach is going to look at is in Eastern Washington in Spokane, the showdown for the Greater Spokane League 3A number 1 seed. Perennial winner Mount Spokane playing Cheney. I don't know if a lot of people had Cheney on their bingo cards to start the year, but here we are. We talked a little off air. John Graham is in his second year. He has an extensive track record in the college game, Eric. And you've seen some of the things that he's taken from college and inserted it, what he's doing at Cheney. Can you elaborate and explain to our listeners some of the things that you've noticed?
Got to know John a lot, going to the football camps over at Eastern, been around him and Bo when they were at Eastern a lot, and really respect him. He's one of those smart football guys. And you can see a lot of the Eastern, Washington, what they're doing, a little spread tight end with the tight end. They got physical tight end. They're running zone off it. They're half booting off of it. Got a pretty good receiver outside. They have Coach Best, the head coach at Eastern, kid at receiver. They have some quick little running backs, but they're physical. They play physical and they play tough. And then on defense, they're doing the same thing. You know, they're running cover 2. They're rolling down in cover 1 when they see 2 back. They're mixing up their coverages and they're physical and playing some games up front with some blitzes and really taking advantage of replacing safeties when they're blitzing and doing what the college teams do. And, you know, he's simplified it for sure, but he's got doing some stuff that probably changing some looks for what they're seeing on offense, other teams on them. But I really, really think, you know, you see a coach or a team that's really developed, and every week you can see him developing, and he's going to keep them getting better and better and better. And they just believe now. And, you know, against Meade, they got a couple turnovers with Meade had some drives, and they knocked the ball and got the momentum back to them and finished, you know, after a turnover. So that was special to see.
Yeah, Connor Collins had a pretty darn good year at quarterback for Cheney. Couple really good wide receivers, including Mason Stinson, brother of Evan Stinson, who plays basketball at Stanford, has really come on in the second half. The Franklin boys really kind of carrying the load over at Mount Spokane in offense, one at running back, one at kind of a do-everything slot or wing back. You said you said you thought it was going to be a low-scoring game, Eric, between these two teams. At the end of this one, what will the scoreboard say?
Well, I think if Mount Spokane quarterback takes off and runs a little more, I think he's pretty electric if he can take off on some things they've done. I think they can score a little bit there, but I think both teams are going to smash and mouth a little bit. They're going to stay in coverage in the right spots. They're well coached. Terry does a great job at Mount Spokane, and they get, you know, they do a lot of that too high stuff too, roll down and cover 1. They have a real physical D lineman. I think Cheney's going to win. I'm going to say 15-14.
Wow. The magical year for the Cheney Blackhawks continue. And I agree with you, Coach Kurle. I think I talked to a coach that's played them both pretty tough and thought that Cheney was a little more physical. I like what John Graham's got going on. I agree. I think it's going to be a 20-17 ball game in favor of Cheney. And they clinched that number 1 seed in the 3A GSL and move on to the playoffs.
I think Cheney's got the home field too, so that gives them that extra point right there, baby.
Well, that'll do it for the X's and O's of the Coach's Corner with Eric Kurle here in Week 9. We appreciate the coach coming on, and he'll be back on Friday for our Midnight Reactions podcast. Stay tuned. We'll bring on Matt Evans from Evans Rankings to talk about some of the top games also in Week 9. Welcome back to the final segment of our Week 9 podcast. We have a group today, especially in the Evans household in Kennewick. But our weekly guest, Matt Evans, joins us to look at some of the top games around the state in week 9. Matt, let's go right to the biggie in the 4A SBSL. I think a lot of people have been looking at this game and had it marked on their calendars. Lots of perimeter talent in this game. You mentioned last week, number 1 team in the state of Washington. Graham Camphausen can kind of maybe wreck that. What do you think about that game?
Man, I'm so excited to see this game. I mean, especially now that Puyallups got their transfer quarterback in. You know, he's been averaging almost 250 yards a game in the last 4 games, just adding a different dynamic to that offense that they may not have had at the beginning of the year. And you know, it's not something that you can, you know, that's easy to game plan for. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how he plays against GK, and I'm excited to see, you know, what GK's game plan is. How do they, you know, are they going to try to, you know, maybe milk possession a little bit more and try to limit the game a little bit? I mean, they themselves have just an amazing offense, like you said, just so many different great perimeter players in this game. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, and I think it's probably going to be the most entertaining game of the weekend.
Yeah, it's the first time where I think Puyallup perimeter guys, and we've talked about them, Mitchell, Woodland, Looker, are going to look up to the other side and see equals, if not maybe even a little bit better. Graham Camphausen might have the best 4 or 5 perimeter wide receivers in the state of Washington. Now, Lake Stevens might argue with me on that too, but so this is going to be an interesting challenge for Puyallup. Even if it's a wash on the outside, Matt, the big question is how is Graham Camphausen going to deal with, especially that undersized defensive line? How is that going to? How is that defensive line going to deal with the power running game of Puyallup, which is led by Brighton Bailey, who's been fantastic. He kind of got that offense off and rolling last week against Curtis. So that's the biggest question of the game. What do you think? I mean, what's your prediction for this game?
I'm leaning Puyallup. I think that one thing I'll be intrigued to see, like you mentioned, GK's kind of undersized defensive line. I'm interested to see if maybe they go with a strategy that like Liberty Christian went with in the state championship game last year, of maybe not having the same size, but maybe trying to beat them with their stamina and just rotating in 7, 8 guys to try to stay fresh against those power rushers from Puyallup. In the end of the day, I think Puyallup wins this game. I think it's going to be close. I think that both teams are probably top 4 seeds when we get going here next week. And yeah, I'm really excited to watch this one.
I do. I think Puyallup will win the game as well. I'm saying 41-30. AJ Tuivasa will be back for Graham Camphausen. For people wondering, he has missed the last 2 weeks with a foot injury, but he will be back. But I do think Puyallup wins in a high-scoring game at Art Crate Field. The second game we're going to look at is in the 3A Greater Spokane League. I don't know if at the beginning of the year we thought Cheney Mount Spokane for the number 1 seed in that league, but here we are. John Graham's done a fantastic job. We had him on earlier in the podcast with his brother Nate Graham. They have a chance to go 1-2 together in the GSL league finish. How do you size up this game?
You know, I'm really intrigued because I feel like Cheney's playing with house money in this one. Nobody really, they're 7-1, but nobody really expects them to win. I don't think anybody expects them to win this game outside of them. You know, I mean, even though if you look at all of them, the metrics, you know, Cheney is equal, if not better, than Mount Spokane. If you look at their matchup with GK or with Gonzaga Prep, Cheney lost by 17. While, you know, Mount Spokane lost by 28. So if you're looking at transitive property there, you know, Cheney's a 10-point favorite, you know, in this one. But I think that the thing that's going to be interesting for me is can Cheney stay composed? I think that this game is going to probably be one of the toughest that they've played since the Gonzaga Prep game, even including that Meade game a couple weeks ago. I think that this is probably going to be the toughest one because they know what's on the line. Can they stay composed? And at the end of the day, I think that I'm going to go with the youth and the new guys. I think I'm going to go with Cheney in this one.
Yeah, I talked to a league coach who's played them both. Thinks that Cheney's a little more physical. than Mount Spokane. Thinks that Cheney will win. Connor Collins, I think you can't understate the cunning year he's had at quarterback as a junior. He's had a couple really good receivers outside with Stinson and Best. Is it enough to beat the Franklin brothers? The Franklin brothers there, one in the backfield, one out in the slot. He does a little bit of everything. But I agree with you, man. I think Cheney's just kind of rolling. John Graham's got them believing. They're in a good frame of mind. We talked about them last week about a potential meeting with Bellevue, how that would look, and I don't think they would be overmatched. Coming to the West Side and playing at Bellevue if that happened in a WIA playoff game. I like Cheney in this game as well. I think they, again, kind of like the last game, touchdown, maybe 7 to 10 points. I think it's a great storyline if both Graham brothers lead their teams to top 2 finishes in the league. And the final game that we're going to take a look at is in the 3A PSL. It's the crossover championship game. Mount Tahoma hosting Lakes. Obviously, the winner here, all but guaranteed a top 4 seed. Mount Tahoma is already in that quadrant. Matt, when you look at this matchup, these two teams played last year, and this was sort of the game that got Mount Tahoma rolling a little bit. An overtime win at Harry E. Lang Stadium. What do you think about this year's matchup?
I think that I think Mount Tahoma is the favorite, but I would not be surprised if this is Lake's coming out party. I think that Lakes may lose this game, but I think it'll be close. And I think that this is going to be the springboard to Lakes being the cream of the PSL crop next year. Because if you look at Lakes, they're just so young in so many different places. They just, as opposed to Mount Tahoma, they're pretty much seniors almost everywhere. So, it's going to take a lot for them to get back. I think that, while Mount Tahoma probably has the edge in this one, I'm thinking that Lakes keeps it close. And I think that this is kind of their springboard to a big run at state next year.
Yeah, I think it's kind of all up to Mount Tahoma. I'm kind of waiting for this offense to fire on all cylinders again. Everybody talks about the big win against Camas early on as a tone setter. They've gotten a lot of mileage out of that game, Matt. And since then, they've sort of been, I don't want to say bailed out, but there are times that they've been stagnant and the big plays kind of got them going. A couple punt returns for touchdowns and a pick 6 last week. But I'm waiting for this offense that's full of seniors to kind of get firing up again. If they can, I think they do win this game, maybe by a couple touchdowns. But Lakes has enough offense with Jadis Lafono, the 9th grader, who's had a really nice year. He's not made a whole lot of mistakes. He's got enough guys on the perimeter. He's got a good running back. They just don't match. Lakes just does not match up on paper very well with Mount Tahoma up front. But if they can keep it close on the road and take them in the fourth quarter of a close game, we all know about Lakes. We all know about the pedigree. It's very difficult to believe that Lakes has not won a state playoff game in almost a decade. So it's time for them to kind of get going and winning again. This is a program that we've all known as one of the best in 3A for decades, and it's certainly capable. If Mount Tahoma does not come out firing and with its A game, Lakes is certainly capable of going there and taking this league championship.
100% agreed with you there. Absolutely, 100% agreed with you.
Well, that'll do it for Week 9 VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I want to thank our guests who have joined us, both speaking in English and baby babble. I want to thank our viewers. We will be back Friday night for our Midnight Reactions podcast. Matt Evans and the championship coach, Eric Kurle, joining me. Stay tuned for then and enjoy Week 9, the last week of the regular season for most programs. This podcast is brought to you by Varsity Washington, your source for high school sports news, rankings, and more around the state of Washington. You can listen to new episodes of the VarsityWA Podcast weekly on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And for more from VarsityWA, visit us at varsitywanews.com and subscribe for daily posts covering the high school sports landscape around the state. A special thank you to our guests on this episode and to Carl Johnson and Matt Bueller of the Portland-based band Edith and Axon for providing the music you hear at the beginning and end of this podcast each week. You can find the band on Instagram at Edith Axon Official. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the VarsityWA Podcast. For producer Lauren Smith, I'm your host, Todd Milles. We will be back next week.